5 seconds. Um, I've kind of gotten it down, and okay, a little bit more than 5 seconds. I lied. I'm sorry. There it goes. All right. So, and music. Hello, hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host Keegan. And this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And today we have a very special guest, and her name is Zoe Smith, and she is the coach. I mean, like, talk about vitality, you want to talk to her. So, Zoe, what exactly is vitality coaching? First of all, because it sounds so big that it's just got to be awesome, right?
It is big. So it's all about returning back to your vitality. So we were all born with vitality when we came into this world. And what we one thing and another, whether it's the food that we've chosen to eat, where we live, the experiences we've had, the pollution we've encountered, whatever it might be, the stresses and strains of life, it's kind of taken us away a lot of the time from our vitality. So your
Mm-hmm.
vitality coaching is around bringing people back, giving them the tools and the techniques to come back to their vitality, to reground, to move away from the stresses and strains, and to regain the vitality across mind, body, and soul. So yeah, I guess it's quite a huge, it's quite a huge area actually.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm so glad that you're on the show because we just have so much to talk about because literally everything you said is stuff that I love to talk about and dive into. Um, but before we dive into all of that stuff, can you tell me a little bit more about Zoe? Who are you? Like, where you come from? What's your story like? How did you get to where you are?
So I'm from the north of England, a county
Okay.
called Yorkshire. So
Ah.
I'm originally from the east coast, just half an hour from the sea. And it's
Oh,
quite a
that's
nice
cool.
part of Yorkshire. Yorkshire's a nice part of England, but
Mm-hmm.
East Yorkshire's a beautiful part. So I've
Mm.
spent a large part of my life over here. I grew up around here. And then I went off to university at the opposite side of the country over in Lancaster, and I
Okay.
studied religion for my degree. I had a real interest in different cultures and traditions and how people lived and why they lived like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that led me to start travelling. And whilst I was doing my degree, I was really lucky to be able to go over to India for 8 weeks and do a bit of a study
Ooh.
tour. And went with two friends and we studied out there for a few weeks as part of that, and then travelled as well. That was
Oh,
amazing.
that would be
Um,
really fun.
oh, it was, yeah. And I've always said I'll go back. I always thought I need to go back to India, and it actually occurred to me that this year it'll be 25 years since I was there. So
Oh
I was just
man,
like, where was that gone? And I haven't been back. So
you need
it's
to
on
get
my
on that.
to-do list. Yeah,
Uh
definitely.
huh.
So then I trained to teach, and I taught in a secondary school, taught RE. I wanted to
Oh.
show the children how other people lived and why religion is interesting and
Mm-hmm.
how it has sort of shaped
Mm-hmm.
society as it is. And I did that for a few years and then came out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't enjoy, I loved the teaching, just didn't enjoy all the wraparound
Ah.
sort of bureaucracy and paperwork and stuff that
Oh.
goes with it.
I could bet
Um,
that's a hassle.
oh yeah, it's hours of work, especially in the
Really?
UK. Yeah, yeah,
Oof.
yeah. It's pretty intense. So I came out and
Yeesh.
built a career
Mm-hmm.
working in local government initially, and the focus became on adult social care and
Mm-hmm.
social work. And I was really fortunate to work in a variety of roles in that sector, some at a national level, and I built a really successful career really quickly.
No, cool.
So that was interesting. I ended up working for government, writing a white paper, the first
Whoa.
chapter on a white paper on integrating health and social care, and so it was a really interesting 10 years
That.
or so.
Whoa.
Um, and
Real quick, can I pause you right there?
yeah,
A white paper. That is something that's actually a big deal, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
yeah. It sets out the government's sort of way forward and the policies they're planning in a
Oh.
particular area.
Whoa.
Yeah,
So you had
so
a big hand in that.
yeah, yeah, I drafted that workforce chapter. It was amazing to work on, to like work with the
Uh-huh.
researchers and the analysts, and to see how government put policy together. It was a real eye
Mhm.
opener.
Oh
And
wow.
to be at the forefront of, at the time, what was quite cutting edge, like integrating health and care. As
Mhm.
it turned out, we haven't in this country
Mhm.
integrated health and care very well.
Hmm.
Which again, as I talk about my background and what I've done, you'll
Mhm.
see it sort of all, in one way or another, leads towards what I'm doing at the moment. And so, like,
Mhm.
I don't think it is fairly common knowledge. I don't think it's new for me to say the health system in England is fundamentally broken. There just isn't the money there to fund the system that we've had for so many years in
Really?
the successful way that it used to be funded. Yeah. So
Huh.
there's a lot of people waiting for treatments and never get them. The waiting
Mm.
lists are huge. It, there's an element of it depending upon whereabouts in the country you live and your postcode as to how fast you get treatments or what type of treatments you get.
Oh wow.
There's an awful lot wrong with it, and I'm not saying that the people who
Hmm.
work in it are no good. Some of those
Mhm.
people are so caring, and the care they give is wonderful.
Mhm.
But equally, there can be areas where that isn't the case. I've
Oh yeah.
personal experience within the family of that recently.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh,
so yeah, so it was
sorry.
interesting to be working on that agenda
Mhm.
and that was around about 2012, and it was a really big thing at the time. Um, and then it's been interesting since to see where they went with it and how they've adapted in other ways. But
Huh.
yeah, that was interesting.
That's
So
really cool.
I sort of went from that to then working
Mhm.
for the NHS in their national team.
Huh.
Um, and I don't know whether, well, probably a combination of things. I was married, and I was unhappy in the marriage, but didn't really know
Mhm.
that at the time.
Mhm.
I'd had a lot of very quick career progression, and then I'd ended up in a team. I'd gone for a job working on the integration of health and care agenda.
Uh-huh.
Ended up working on the Section 65 regulations for procurement, which the name itself is like watching paint dry, and I am not. I'm not a procurement person. My mind isn't set up like that.
Uh-huh.
And then so I went for the job, and they were like, "Oh, by the way, you're not doing integration. You're going to be working on these procurement regulations. Our team's
Mm.
had a change." And I was kind of like, "That's not great."
Bummer.
And then a few months later, we had another shuffle round, and they decided that I would be working on choice in mental health, which, when I look
Hmm.
back now, makes me laugh because at the time I hadn't really experienced any mental health issues,
Mhm.
either in the family, amongst my friends, or um, I think the only experience I'd had was my ex-mother-in-law had
Mhm.
suffered with depression for a very long time, and she'd been on
Mm.
antidepressants for a very long time. And
Mhm.
whenever she tried to come off them, she'd ended
Oof.
up having to go back on them.
Mhm.
And so that was my only experience. And this is only, what, 15 years ago, and
Mhm.
mental health just wasn't talked about in the way that it is today. Even
Uh-uh.
just that short time ago, it
Yeah.
wasn't understood and talked about in the way that it is today. So
Mhm.
um, I ended up working on choice in mental health, and quickly realised through my own experiences that there wasn't really a lot of choice in mental health back then.
Mm-mm.
So I ended up off work, sick for about 5 months with anxiety and depression. And I
Ooh.
remember just finding myself one day sitting under my desk at home crying, and then think, because I used to work
Oh.
from home a couple of days a week, and I remember
Oh.
thinking, you're sitting under your desk and you're crying. This isn't normal, Zoe. And I
No.
sort of climbed out and Googled symptoms of depression and went down the list, and I was like, yep. Okay, okay. Went to the doctors, and
Man.
the doctor was like, right, okay, I'll put you on antidepressants. I said, I don't want
Mhm.
antidepressants,
Yeah.
largely because of my ex-mother-in-law's experience and that being my only. And
Mhm.
I've always had a lean towards the natural rather than pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
So he sort of looked at me and he said, well, if you're not prepared to take those, how do you propose to get better? So I said,
Good question.
talking therapy. So he was like, okay,
Ah.
counselling, right, okay. well, we can put you down for counselling, but there's an 8 week waiting list. So he
Mm.
said, you aren't going to make any progress in the 8 weeks, so maybe you want to think about taking the antidepressants.
Mhm.
So anyway, we sort of agreed he would put me on the list,
Mhm.
and off I went. And I went home and did a bit of research, and stumbled by accident on a local yoga class. And I thought, oh, yoga, never tried that. Let's have a go. And I used to
Ooh.
get out walking every day. I did lots of yoga, fell in love with yoga, and eventually
Mm.
got the counselling. And one way and another, sort of came through it. And at
That's
that
awesome.
point, decided I was wanting to do something more with people rather than policy. I
Mhm.
wanted to actually make a difference. I felt like I wasn't making a difference in policy. We were talking about what needed doing,
Mm.
and then we
Mhm.
weren't really making any difference in doing it. So I trained as a mental capacity advocate, working to support people who lack capacity in making key decisions about health and where they live and things like that.
Oh.
And then I managed a home care service that was failing, and we turned it round within about 4.5 months. But then alongside
Whoa.
all that, I'd always been massively into my fitness. I'd been a qualified
Mhm.
fitness instructor. I'd got my personal training qualification, and
Mhm.
I did it all sort of as a bit of a hobby, really, on the side.
Mhm.
Um, and at that point, I suddenly thought, after we turned the care service round, I was like, right, I'm going to set up as a PT on my own and
Mhm.
let's give it a go. So I did, and I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot in a short space of time about running a business, and um, a lot of what not to do as well as what to do. And
Mhm.
ended up managing a local gym and bits and bats of other things. And then suddenly
Huh.
decided one day I'd gone through a bit of a tough time. Things had not been working
Mhm.
with family and relationships, and the job at the gym. I wasn't getting on well with the owner, and I thought, right,
Mm.
I want to do something else. And I
Yeah.
went abroad and taught English in China for a couple of years. And I was out
Oh.
there when the pandemic kicked off. So again,
Whoa.
real eye opener. It was an amazing experience.
That
And
would have
I
been
would have
crazy.
stayed out there. I had an amazing time,
Mhm.
but they were mandating the vaccine as part of the travel visa, part of the work visa rather.
Mhm.
And I thought, I really don't want this vaccine. I sort of heard a lot about it and
Mhm.
decided, right, I don't want it. I'm going to have to leave China because in order to stay, I'm going to need it. So I came
Mhm.
back to England, and it was when I came back to England, whilst I'd been in China, I'd discovered traditional Chinese medicine. I'd
Mhm.
used their health system whilst I was out there, and I'd
Mhm.
used their traditional and the allopathic routes.
Ooh.
And I'd learnt a lot. I'd done a lot of yoga out there. I'd started my training as a hypnotherapist whilst I was out there.
Ooh.
And so when I came back, everything just sort of came together without a plan, if you know what I mean. Sometimes
Yeah.
when you find things that you enjoy doing, it just happens that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
And
sure
so
does.
I've sort of then qualified as a Reiki master. I do my quantum healing hypnosis technique, hypnotherapy that Dolores Cannon
Whoa.
introduced. I'm a sound therapy practitioner. I do life coaching, and of course, still doing the personal training and teaching fitness classes and all of that, working with people with long-term conditions on exercise,
Mhm.
rehab, and things like that. So yeah, it's pulled it all together into one place. It's given me a really good understanding of why our health system doesn't work, because I've
Mhm.
experienced it on so many different levels, and both the
Uh-huh.
physical and the mental
Mhm.
side. So it's given me a real focus as to
Huh.
how I want to be able to work with people and to bring them back
Mhm.
to their vitality and to show them that it's possible. Because I've noticed over the last 2 years there's a lot of people turning to alternatives now. A lot of
Mhm.
people are turning away from pharmaceuticals for whatever reason, whether it's because they can't get an appointment, or whether it's because they're sick of taking tablets, or whatever it
Mhm.
might be. People are very open now, much more so than ever, to alternative options, and I'm seeing some amazing results with some of them. So it's been really interesting.
Man, that is crazy. That is such a background. I mean, and I love it because you've been on the policy side of things and you've been on the action side of things. And so you really do get to see the background and the actual implementations of the policies, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and with that being said, you definitely would be able to understand the UK's healthcare system way better than the average patient, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Um, because the average patient just goes, "Oh no, I'm feeling bad. I need to go get seen," and then either run into issues of not being able to be seen for one reason or another, or being seen, and they don't think anything else about it, right?
Right.
Um, but you've been able to actually sit here and create vitality coaching and take all your experiences into this. So I guess my first question that I really have is, how does someone get in touch with you whenever they want to get some vitality coaching in them?
I have a website which I've lovingly crafted myself. I have done web design in the past. I've built two or three other websites for gyms and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I put my heart and soul into this one, and it's been a bit of a project over the last 2 or 3 years. And
Oh
it's
wow.
finally sort of at a stage, and I know like websites continue to evolve, and this one will be no different. But
Mm-hmm.
currently, it's at a stage where I'm really happy with it. It summarises all of the services that we offer. It gives a bit of explanation into my background and how I've ended up doing what I'm doing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's got links off to other other sites and how sort of I've got to where I've got and where the services like such as where the Reiki history comes from and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
people can book on my website. I do a discovery call as well because quite often, if someone's got a complex background, they don't really know which service will be best for them or which mixture of services will be best for them. So sometimes having a 20-minute discovery call just to figure things out and put a plan in
Mm-hmm.
place can be really useful. I've
Oh
just
man.
opened a shop on there as well, and I'm just in the process of putting an online platform together for some live exercise and meditation and yoga classes as well. So it's
Some
going to
more.
continue to grow, and it's just exciting to see it evolve.
That's really cool. And you said live classes?
Hmm.
That is going to be interesting.
Yeah,
And real quick, did I get your website right on the bottom of the screen?
you did. Yeah, yeah.
Sweet. So anyone out there that's watching, check out yourvitalitycoaching.com. I've checked it out. It is an awesome looking website. I'm honestly a little jealous, not gonna lie. um, but those live sessions and those discovery calls, all that really does encapsulate a lot of time and energy of your own.
Mm.
And so we've kind of talked about time dilation on the show before, but not with you. Um, and it's one of those things that time, with all your experience, seems to be, well, I don't know if time, it's not really infinite, but it feels like it, right? Um, so all your experience has been condensed into your vitalitycoaching.com,
Mm.
and now you're scheduling yourself in all these different directions, right?
Mm.
Because you're taking care of clients and you're taking care of them as a person, and you're not treating them as a number. So
No.
on your discovery call, what is one of the questions that you ask that you really need someone to be honest about?
I often start with a question that makes people really stop and think, and it's along the lines of if you don't. So I let them tell me what they think the issue is,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes what we think the issue is isn't the issue. Because
Mm-hmm.
on my own experience, when I went off with anxiety and depression, I thought it was my job. I thought the job just wasn't right for me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had counselling and unpicked it was my marriage. And I was
Mm.
miserable, but I didn't actually know that until I started to dive into it and unpick it. So
Mm-hmm.
I ask them to tell me what they think the issue is and why they want to resolve it. And then I ask them if what are the consequences of not doing anything about this?
Mm-hmm.
So say 5 years from now, 5 years from now, if you haven't done anything about this, what will life look like for you?
Mm.
And that makes them think,
Yeah, five
hmm,
years. And
yeah,
and isn't it interesting that people respond to negative consequences more so than positive ones?
Yeah.
Um, do you have any insight into that? Because I've always been curious myself. Because a lot of the times I'm going to do something out of fear of consequences, or the lack of.
Mm.
So, what do you think makes someone want to do something because of negative consequences?
It is a little bit about the fear of missing out, isn't it? I
Ooh,
think it's a bit of that. Um,
yeah.
and and I think as much we all try and think positive. We're always
Mhm.
told think positive, it'll be all right, and we do we do try.
Mhm.
Um, but as human beings, you naturally think of what might go wrong and
Mhm.
how it might go wrong, and if it goes wrong, what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
We do naturally look at those things,
Mhm.
and sometimes the fear of that pushing out of your comfort zone into
Mhm.
something brand new that you haven't experienced or that's going to be that you know is going to be tricky for a while is enough to hold you in your comfort zone. I know when I realized that my marriage wasn't going as I wanted it to, and actually there was no way back from that, when I eventually realized that,
Mhm.
the thought of moving out of that house and having to find somewhere else to live and to be on my own
Mm.
and to manage my own income and things like that, it took me another year to leave
Ooh.
after I had realised that was the
Mhm.
issue. And it's along those lines, isn't it? It's the fear of
Mhm.
the unknown is
Yeah.
enough to hold us stuck sometimes.
Yeah. Uh, and I'm really sorry about that marriage, by the way. Uh, I've been divorced myself. It's not fun.
No.
And it really sucks whenever it's like you thought and you really felt, or you thought you did, and then it's, oh man, with that, I think that's a whole discussion we can have for a whole episode. um, but as someone with generalized anxiety myself, I can totally relate with uh, that fear of everything because it's paralyzing sometimes. It really is. And it's that fear of the unknown, but sometimes I think it's the fear of too many possibilities,
Mm.
right? I feel like sometimes if it were like, give me multiple choice, like A, B, C, or D, I could narrow it down. But if it's just like, take your pick of literally anything. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fear of picking the wrong choice as well, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly it.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm always trying to meet some weird, like, imaginary checklist of perfection. And I don't know who gave it to me. I don't know when I wrote it. Do you have anything like that yourself? Or
I
did
used
you in the
to.
past? Used
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yes,
How'd you get rid of it?
definitely. Um, I think for me, as much as I had had the counselling
Mm-hmm.
before I got divorced,
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of what I learnt I didn't fully put into practice until after. And
Mm.
once I was living on my own, and at the time when I got divorced, I moved areas as well. So I moved away from the area that I'd been living, right over to the other side of the country. I
Mm-hmm.
took a new job, and I had only a couple of friends that I knew that lived over there. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to move out of that comfort zone, and I had to make new friends. I had to make contacts. I was driving
Mm-hmm.
around for work in an area of the country that I didn't really know, so I had to just get on with that. And yeah, I think
Man.
at that point I then put into practice a lot of what
Mm-hmm.
I'd learned. And one of the big things for me growing up, my parents always used to say, what
Mm-hmm.
will people think? Don't do that, because what will people think? And oh, you mustn't behave like this
Mm.
because, and it was very much drilled into us as kids, like what will people think? And so
Yeah.
having that checklist
Mm-hmm.
in your head was
Mm-hmm.
for me was all about, I need to have a nice house. I need to have a nice car. I need to have a good job. I need to have a pension lined up. I need to have, all of those things that are kind of drilled into us as being the norm. And
Mm-hmm.
well, actually, I realised that one of the main reasons why I had experienced what I'd experienced
Mm-hmm.
with the anxiety and depression was because I don't fit that norm. If any of us fit that norm,
I don't think so.
and then I was miserable trying to make myself fit the norm
Mm-hmm.
and to follow this list, and
Yep.
it, it wasn't just one list, because then you
Mm-hmm.
have, in order to achieve, the things on the achievements list, you then have to have a list of tasks to do every day. So
Yeah.
like, and then how you're living your life is not how you're choosing to live it, because you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
achieve all of the tasks that are then going to leave, and it's just like a never-ending hamster wheel. And once you
Yeah.
free yourself from that, it's so liberating. And the
Yep.
actual being able to say no and not have to justify
Mm.
why. And I realized in the past, if I hadn't wanted to do something, I'd always felt like I had to give a reason why.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I realised I don't need to give a reason why. I just need to say no, thank you,
Yeah.
and that's fine. And just things like that. So
Uh-huh.
breaking out of traditional thought patterns, it takes time and it takes practice. But I guess for me, with moving away, and
Mm-hmm.
I was able to sort of reinvent myself, if you like, and or at
Ooh.
least get to know myself on a different level.
Mm-hmm.
It was liberating.
Yeah, that really does sound liberating. And I mean, getting to know yourself, or reinventing yourself. I like how you used both of those at once because really it is a mixture of both,
Mm.
right? Because I mean, I'm going on 4 years sober, and it's been one heck of a ride this whole time. Because I mean, do I take all the experience from the past and then like just kind of forget about it? Or do I take parts of it and try to build them up to something better? But it's hard whenever I don't know which parts to take with, right?
Yeah.
Um, how do you filter out what's good, what is edifying, what builds you up, and what is ultimately subtracting, whether you think about it or it's kind of subconscious?
Yeah, in some ways it is subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
It's a constant trial and error, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
try this, and how does that feel? How did it work? Try that. And um, travel for me as
Mm-hmm.
well. When I went traveling and when I lived abroad, nobody knew me out there.
Mm.
And I could completely be myself. And it was really at that point I figured out exactly who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realised up to that point I had been doing exactly that, trying different things and
Ah.
seeing how it made me feel. And I suppose that is part of life and part of learning, isn't it? We,
Mm-hmm.
we try different things, and however that makes us feel determines what we take with us and do again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I feel like the getting to know yourself is like peeling an onion in some ways. Because you get to know yourself on one level, and then something
Mm-hmm.
happens and you peel away a layer of healing or a layer
Mm-hmm.
of discovery, and then you get to know yourself on another level. And that's a bit like dealing with trauma um,
Mm-hmm.
or healing in any way. It is a bit like peeling. Everything happens in layers, and you just think you've solved something, and you're plain sailing, and the end's in sight. And then, excuse me,
You're fine.
and then another layer of the onion comes off, and you're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
no, more.
Yeah. I know that feel. That's kind of sounds like masking. Whenever you mask for so long, like you're kind of pretending that you're happy, even if you know that you're not. Whenever you finally start taking that mask off, whenever I started doing it, I kind of felt like my skin had grown around the mask, you know, and it hurts to cut it off and take that mask away. But digging into that onion is literally just your smooth sailing and then bumpy roads, smooth sailing, bumpy roads, and it always comes at the most unneeded time.
Doesn't it?
um, what was one of the ones that happened while you were traveling? What was one of the really big epiphanies that you got that kind of got you out of your comfort zone and you were like, that is a part of me. That is who I am.
Uh, let's So
you, you probably
there
had a
was
lot, huh?
there was a lot. There was a lot. I think I've never been a patient person, and
Mm.
and I'm not particularly patient now, but I am a lot more patient now than I was before I went travelling.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just a
Ooh.
number of different things because I didn't speak the language when I moved to China. And if I'm quite honest, I don't speak it an awful lot better now, but um, I did learn enough to get by whilst I was out there,
Mm-hmm.
and I could have like short conversations in Mandarin, and I
Mm-hmm.
understood more than I could speak, but I
Mm-hmm.
could speak and I could read. I recognised a lot of the characters when I was out and about.
Mm-hmm.
But to get to that point was 2 years of just random communication, and I realised like I can communicate without language. As human beings, we find ways.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
There's a lot of gesturing, there's a lot of pointing, and thankfully with smartphones you can just show someone a picture on your phone and that can
Mm-hmm.
help. And so we get by, but you have to
Mm-hmm.
be patient sometimes because sometimes the people that you're trying to ask for help,
Mm.
they don't want to go through that whole communication process. And a lot of the systems out in China are
Mm-hmm.
incredibly bureaucratic. There's loads of
Mm.
paperwork. To say that technology is what it is out there and technology out there is phenomenal, there
Huh.
is still a lot of, so thinking about the visa process or going to a hospital or something like that, whenever you do
Mm-hmm.
anything like that, it's like you get a piece of paper from one window, you walk down the corridor, you give it to a person sitting at another window, they stamp it, you take it back, you go up the
Huh.
corridor. There's a lot of that. And
Uh-huh.
in between all that, there's a lot of standing in queues,
Mm-hmm.
and you cannot speed that process up. So
Mm-mm.
patience,
Ouch.
I had to develop a lot of patience, and then I realised I can be patient. And
Mm-hmm.
again, patience is a state of mind, isn't it? It's how you approach something, it's how you think about something.
Hmm.
And I learned at the same time, during lockdown while I was out there, I was listening to podcasts and doing a lot of reading about sort of spirituality, and I came
Mm.
across, that was when I discovered Dolores Cannon and the QHHT method, and sort of
Ah.
thinking about divine timing as
Mm-hmm.
well, and how some things you cannot rush. You can want it as much as you want it, but it will
Mm-hmm.
happen if it's meant to be in
Yeah.
divine timing, and that divine timing is always perfect. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there was quite a few lessons whilst I was out there that
Mm-hmm.
taught me that I can actually be a lot more patient than I used to give myself credit for.
That's awesome. Patience though, I didn't really think of patience as being one of those that I would be like, oh, that's a part of me, or something that I built up for sure. And now that I think about it, patience is definitely something that I could work on myself. And you said it's a state of mind, but for me, my patience is not being able to sit still. And so it's like, gotta get stuff done, gotta move, gotta go. And so trying to sit still, stay still for me is like a task in its own sometimes. But um, I totally understand that patience is key to a lot of things. And whenever you literally have to build patience, don't you? It doesn't just come at like a nice little platter all at once saying, "Here, you asked for it, you got all the patience in the world." Uh, how do you build up your patience? Because it's not something you want to do, right?
No, and I think thinking about what you just said, there's different types of patients as well, isn't there? Like I'm a qualified primary and secondary school teacher. When I'm
Mm-hmm.
teaching children, I've got as much patience in the world as I could
Mm-hmm.
ever need. I'm so patient with them when they're learning. I don't get frustrated with them. So from that perspective, I have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of patience. But
Mm-hmm.
then in terms of my own life and wanting things and to get on with things, then that's where I struggle with patience.
Mm.
Um, and I think in terms of developing that, that's what you were asking me, wasn't it? How do I develop it?
Yeah,
Um,
kind of.
I think, how do I develop it? I think I've started to think more carefully about what it is that I want. I've been much clearer
Ooh.
about that after getting divorced. Because after you've
Mm.
spent years of your life doing something or with someone that It wasn't
Mhm.
what you wanted.
Mhm.
You're a bit more choosy about how you spend your time and who with after that.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot clearer on what I do want, and then I suppose I
Mhm.
plan more carefully how I'm going to get there.
Mm.
And at those times when that doesn't happen, and
Mhm.
as much because you can plan as much as you like and you can work
Mhm.
towards your goals, but if they're not happening, that's when I'll take a step back and turn to some of my own tools. And like sometimes just getting out and going for a walk
Mhm.
can put things in perspective again and
Mhm.
can just give you that chance to take a step back and reflect.
Yeah.
Yoga's good for that as well. Just an
Ooh.
hour on my yoga mat can sometimes refocus my mind and get rid of that frustration. Like, right, come on, Zoe, you're doing all you can.
Mhm.
It'll happen when it happens. Or yeah, so using some of the tools that I've come across over time have really helped me.
Okay. What are some of the tools that you've learned that you really like to use?
I I really love my yoga. Um,
Oh, yoga. You
yeah,
have mentioned that a couple times. And I know
yeah,
that there are some like specialty yogas, correct?
there are.
Uh,
There's so many different types. There's even goat yoga and puppy yoga now where you can do it with your pets.
okay, I know I've seen the goat yoga, but I can't imagine puppy yoga because I can't imagine a puppy sitting still for long
No, they
enough.
don't. They
So
don't.
how
They're
does that
climbing
work?
in the positions, and
So it's that
that
sounds like
requires patience.
I was about to say that would build up patience very quickly for me. Uh, which kind of yogas do you prefer whenever your mind is really like just out there, something that uh, got you out left field and you need to recenter yourself? Which one is your go-to?
To clear my mind would be hatha yoga because that's
Mm-hmm.
about like dynamic movement and moving
Mm.
the body with the breath. And
Mm-hmm.
so every time you move, you're wrapping that movement within the breath.
Mm-hmm.
So you have no choice but to absolutely connect with your
Mm.
breath and with your movement. So you can't
Mm-hmm.
think about anything else for an hour or however long. So
Huh.
I love that when my mind's busy. But then if
Okay.
I have had a stressful day or something's happened and I really just need to come back to myself and just chill, then
Mm.
yin yoga is my
Mm.
go-to because that's where you sort of hold in positions and relaxing into them for about 2 to 5 minutes. So it's and again you're
Oh.
focusing on your breath, you're focusing on your
Mm.
body, but instead of the movement, you're just tuning into your body, seeing which bits are tense and working on relaxing them, like breathing into the tension and relaxing it away as you exhale. So
Huh.
I really love both those types. And
That's really strange because I've kind of done something similar, but without any formal training or
right,
something. Um, because it's like I'll have to sit there and be like, okay, so I got a little bit of a like tension here, and then just maybe like shake the shoulder out a little bit, and then just kind of let my body do its thing. But it sounds like there's actually a system to follow.
yeah, there is. If you want a system, there's a system, and
Huh.
it's absolutely amazing. But also with the yin, sometimes when you
Mm-hmm.
get tension in a part of your body,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll feel like you've got a knot when you feel your muscle, you'll feel you've got a knot or there's a
Mm-hmm.
tight spot that you can't get rid of. Well, with the hatha yoga, because you're moving and you're holding a position, it's
Mm-hmm.
more about the strength and power within that pose.
Ah.
Whereas with the yin yoga, you get into the stretch and then you just relax the body. So you're
Mm-hmm.
surrendering to the stretch. So in the
Mm-hmm.
hatha yoga, you're stretching the muscle fibers in that posture. In
Huh.
the yin yoga, you're holding that posture for so much longer that it allows the fascia around the outside of the muscle to stretch as well, which helps to
Oh.
then release the tension and the knots.
Huh.
So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is really cool. A little bit of science there too, because I didn't realize that the fascia would actually release itself whenever it just holds in position long enough.
It can do with a nice
Mm-hmm.
relaxing gentle hold. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not striving to. Sometimes when you do a stretch before you do exercise and you think, oh,
Mm-hmm.
my hamstring feels tight, that don't feel good. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about feeling that kind of stretch. Although So with yin, you'll go into the stretch, and wherever that feels okay for you, like you can feel the stretch, but it's not painful, or you're not overstretching. Wherever that feels, you just hold it there and relax. And you probably find as well after a couple of minutes you can go a little deeper. But the idea is that you don't move your body. You sort of go into the stretch, hold it, relax, and just stay there and breathe into it. So
Huh.
yeah.
That's one that I'm going to have to try out myself. Is there a position that you suggest for that? Because whenever
Where do you
most,
feel tightness?
at the moment, I'd say like neck, um, yeah, neck and shoulders would be the best.
Maybe it's something like thread the needle. So
Thread the needle. What's
yeah,
that?
you go up onto your hands and knees,
Uh-huh.
and then you place one arm under the other and drop your shoulder and cheek to the mat, keeping
Oh.
your bum in the air, and then you hold it
So just and then do that on
on the other
both
side.
sides?
Yeah, and that'll just
Okay.
stretch out that area around the back, and it releases your lower back at the same time, so it's a nice
And
stretch.
with my legs, just you said bum in the air, so
Yeah, so you're up
so knees up.
on your knees. Yeah, kneeling on your knees and then bum in the air and sort of come down into.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't really do that on camera here. I'm in a corner. But thank you for that tip. I'm definitely going to give it a try whenever we're done here. But I did just check the time. It's at a good spot. Real quick, everyone, uh, yourvitalitycoaching.com. Check it out. It is super awesome. And there's a dog back there. I don't know if you heard that or not. um, and also, anyone that does yoga, do you need a yoga mat?
It helps. You
It
can do
helps.
it without. It's just a little more comfy with a mat.
Uh,
Yeah.
um, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And I find as well that the thinner they are, it's getting
Mhm.
that balance. So you want it comfy so that it's protecting your knees,
Mhm.
but not so thick that when you stand on it you start wobbling. Because some of the poses are about balance as well. So it's not. It's good to have it not too thick.
Okay. Um, and I know that we've kind of jumped rabbit holes, and I know that we were going to do that. So thank you for doing that with me and just being awesome because I know we've got so many rabbit holes to find because we've already found so many. But sticking with yoga, I was doing hot yoga for a little bit. That was a strange experience. um, have I guess you've had experience with hot yoga. What would you recommend for someone doing hot yoga? Is it good
I
for anything really? Is
Yeah,
it is it just
it's
hyped up?
no, it has got so many benefits. I did it when I was in China. When I was living in China, it was really popular out there. And where I lived,
Huh.
in the second year that I was there was a really good hot yoga studio just down the road.
Huh.
And it's done in you follow with hot yoga. You traditionally follow a particular sequence of
Mhm.
poses. So the school I went to, they made sure that you knew those poses before they put you into a class.
Mhm.
But because of the heat, you sweat so much. And you wouldn't think that doing yoga would make you sweat because you can sort of hold in poses. But the sweat is just, so you're releasing toxins, and because your body's warm, your muscles are
Mhm.
warm. And so as you're holding the stretches, they're already warm. There's no danger
Mm.
that they're tight and cold and you're going to pull something,
Ah.
as much as maybe if you were doing hatha yoga on the beach in the winter. That wouldn't be as good. But yeah, so hot yoga is brilliant.
Okay. I might have to pick that back up, but I don't know. Well, I'm saying I don't know about trying to take care of myself, so I'm not prioritizing my self-care. Ah.
But then with self care, you've got to find something that you truly enjoy. Because if you don't,
Mm.
if you're not really like, I ought to do this. If there's an
Uh-huh.
ought to, then
Ooh.
it's probably not the right one. So maybe have a look at some other types of yoga and see if there's one, or Tai Chi or something
Ooh.
else that
I
really
l-
gets you to want to do it.
I love that mindset. I have not heard anyone say that yet. If you say I ought to do it, you probably shouldn't. You should probably go find your other thing to go do. Well, he didn't say you shouldn't, but definitely find, explore, explore different options,
Yeah,
because now that you mention it, I have gone through those phases where it's like, oh, I'm going to go meditate for like an hour, or I'm going to go stretch or exercise and do this. And it hasn't necessarily been something that is like I'm super consistent, but I'll be consistent with it for a bit and then I'll jump to the next phase. And then I'll kind of cycle through them. But is, I don't know. Is that something that you kind of do too?
yeah. And what I've learned as I've gone along, because when I first discovered yoga, I discovered meditation, and I used to go to a meditation class at the local Buddhist school.
Mm-hmm.
They had a group every week, and I used to go, and it was good. I enjoyed it, but at that point in my life, when I
Mm-hmm.
had the anxiety and depression, it was an amazing release for me to
Mm-hmm.
take time to go, to sit, to be quiet, to actually clear my mind and meditate. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked it up and put it down, just a bit like you've described. Like every now and then I'd do it, and then I wouldn't do it for a while, and then I'd come back to it. And
Mm-hmm.
during lockdown, I did loads of meditation. But what I've really realised over the years is that finding something that brings you absolute joy, whatever that is, whether it's dancing, whether it's playing music, whether it's running, whether it's walking in nature, it might
Mm-hmm.
be yoga, sound therapy, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing that thing that brings you joy, you're focused only on that thing. You're not dancing and thinking about all your problems, and you're not running and going over and over a conversation that you had that morning.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually enjoying that particular activity, and that is a form of meditation in itself, because you're clearing your mind and
Huh.
you're coming back to yourself, and you've got one single point of focus. So whether that single point of focus is your body and breath in yoga, or
Mm-hmm.
whether it's listening to the sound in a sound bath, or whatever it is, when you're able to clear the clutter, then
Uh-huh.
that's a form of meditation. So it doesn't have to be sitting cross-legged on the floor and completely like zoning out for an hour. Although
I,
that has its place if that is what brings someone joy.
there you go. I love that because it really does highlight just gotta find what brings me joy. And it's weird because I have so much clutter just going on in my head all the time that even meditation can be difficult. Um, I assume or presume that you have dealt with that in the past, correct?
Mm, yeah,
Um,
I
and
still sometimes now. Yeah.
yeah, especially with a history of anxiety and depression. I know that meditation was actually like I like to do it, but it was super hard to actually get into and clear the head too.
Mm.
Um, so how do you clear your head whenever you're dealing with anxiety, whenever you're dealing with depression?
Uh, for, for the reasons you just said, so like to sit in meditation for me, my mind has
Mhm.
to already be calm. For me to
Mhm.
actually sit and get, otherwise, I find if it isn't, I'll sit down and get really frustrated because my mind's not clear and I'm not concentrating on the
Yeah.
meditation, and I keep wandering, and then I get cross, and it has the opposite effect to what I really wanted it to.
Mhm.
Um, so I have a few different techniques. Have you
Mhm.
come across acupressure mats, Shakti mats?
Uh, yes, I haven't actually used them though. But I'm familiar with the acupressure chart. So.
Mm, yeah. So when I was in China, I had acupuncture, and
Mhm.
when I came back, I couldn't find a Chinese practitioner for acupuncture locally.
Huh.
Um, and somebody said to me, "Oh, have you tried the Shakti mats?" Well, I'd never heard of them. Anyway, I
Mhm.
bought one,
Huh.
and you lie on it, and
Mhm.
at first it feels really uncomfortable, and then after 3 or 4 minutes, your body relaxes, and I found by accident that when I lay on that, it clears my mind, because at first I get on it and all I'm thinking about is that hurts, that's not very nice, that's really uncomfortable. And then as my body relaxes, I've
Uh-huh.
cleared my mind, because just like going through that whole few minutes and then I'm calm, and so then I can stick on a meditation on YouTube or something, or I'll just lay there for 20 minutes and
Huh.
meditate. So that's one way. And another is sound baths. I only
Huh.
discovered sound therapy
Mhm.
about a year ago, maybe
Mhm.
18 months. And I find like it's the vibrations from the instruments, but also
Mm.
the noise of the instruments.
Mhm.
You've got a point of focus, so you're listening to it, feeling the vibrations, and it somehow just clears. For me, it just clears my mind,
Huh.
and I often can just get so deeply relaxed I'll almost be asleep.
Mhm.
Um, but
Huh.
equally, the Reiki healing that I do, often people find if they've got a cluttered mind, having Reiki or reflexology or something like that,
Ooh.
again, it puts them into that deeply relaxed state. And it's when the body's in that state of deep relaxation that it can start to heal itself.
Hmm.
But like we were just saying, we're never in that state of deep relaxation unless
Hmm.
we really make the time for it. And life, modern life, doesn't encourage us to make that time. So it's something we have to do ourselves. But it's
Mhm.
so important because, and again, sleep, when we're sleeping and truly resting, we're relaxed. So again, the
Mhm.
body's healing itself as we sleep. But one of the things that's got shorter in modern life is our sleep cycle.
Yeah.
And so when you just put all of those factors together,
Mhm.
it's harder now for us to achieve that relaxation.
No, I have to totally agree with you because my sleep cycle is already just like uh yeah, today's technology, all the screens, all the stress, all the everything really doesn't allow for time to be me, you know? And it really sucks because that is moments where I want to relax and chill, you know? But at the same time, I don't know because I'm so used to being let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go that I don't know what else there is except for those few moments of like, all right, mm. um, but we're at the 52-minute mark,
Wow.
and yeah, I know, right? That just was just whoa.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm just like I said, we've got yoga covered a little bit. We've got some anxiety and depression and overthinking in there, and we already covered other stuff. But real quick, I want to direct your vitality coaching again. Yourvitalitycoaching.com, and how can people get in touch with you aside from
You
that?
can, on the website, there's a contact form.
Mm-hmm.
I think my email address is on there as well.
Okay,
They are the main two ways, really. Yeah. But
sweet.
yeah, jump on.
And people, can anyone give you a discovery call or schedule one with you?
Yeah, yeah. And they're free, 20 minutes. Yeah,
Free 20 minutes.
yeah.
So if y'all want to check this out, and y'all totally should, this is an awesome website. She is an amazing person, and she has so much to offer. I can't wait to have her back on the show. But we're going to ask you real quick. Um, oh, you are in the UK, so you may not know this. There is a number that people can call if they are in a crisis. Do you know what that number is? It's a really simple number.
No, I don't.
It is 988. Um, so, and that can be used literally for if someone is having suicidal ideations, someone just had a really bad breakup, you just
Right.
got laid off from your job. Literally any crisis, dial 988 and there will be someone that will take care of you. So,
That's really
um,
good.
yeah, I just want to throw that out there because not a lot of people know that nowadays. It used to be a long number for suicide hotline, and now they just said every hotline we're just going to condense it 988.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But do you have anything that you'd like to leave our listeners with this episode? Um, Final thoughts? Anything that kind of makes them want more? Uh, do you want anything in particular to talk about next time?
Ooh. Um, I think in terms of leaving them, with
Mm-hmm.
something to think about. I think thinking about mind, body, and soul.
Mm-hmm.
So we not just physical health, but actually stepping back and making the time to clear your mind and
Mm-hmm.
to take that time for you to ground yourself, to come back to yourself. And I think when your mind and body are in sync, your
Mm-hmm.
soul follows suit much more easily. It's much
Ah.
more easy for that to happen. Um, and then next time, ooh, we've come down some quite interesting rabbit holes tonight.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. There's
You
so
did
many
just
different ways.
mention, yeah, you did just mention mind, body, and soul, and we did kind of do a little bit of the mind with the anxiety and depression. We did a little bit of the body with the yoga,
Mm,
and so I guess next we can kind of do something uh, the soul,
with the soul,
with
yeah,
spirituality,
yeah.
with all sorts of things. Because I mean, we've got so much to talk about. Um, and I did just realize I did something that is offensive over in the UK. I've been told the peace sign, um, the two fingers. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I just realized that. I'm so
it
sorry.
depends which way round you hold your fingers. To be fair,
Is it
if it's that way, that's fine.
okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
I had my hand not that way, so
Okay.
yeah, my bad. So yeah, anyone out there that doesn't know that, definitely check your cultural references because you can definitely get whopped in the face because I've seen YouTube videos of it. It's not good. um, but Zoe, I got to thank you for being on the show.
Oh,
This has
thank you.
been an absolute pleasure. It's been a blast. And our next episode is going to be fantastic
Yeah.
because this one was already just out of the water.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been really great to talk to you.
Of course. Um, you know, hmm. So we started recording at about 7 your time.
Mm.
So it's about, um, did you hear that? Was that you or me? I think that was me. Um, Facebook, yes. Sorry about that. Um, so we know we're going to have you on the show again, but when can we expect to see you on the show again?
Ooh.
Because we can give it a couple weeks, we can give it a couple months, because I mean, we can either let life experiences happen and then do a little bit of catch up, or we can just say, hey, next week or whatever, let's do it again.
Yeah, in
Um,
a couple of weeks,
yeah,
2 3 weeks. Yeah.
yeah, let's shoot for about 3 weeks, see
Great.
where everything's at, because between you and me, who knows where the political climate here is going to go. So, so I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I mean, that's just being straight up honest. So, who knows
Yeah.
what's going to happen?
True.
But
Things are changing fast at the moment, aren't they?
yeah, but things will be just fine between us, so no worries. But
Cool.
everyone, I've got to thank you for listening to WDJY 99.1. This is Retrieving Sanity, and this has been Zoe Smith. And be sure to check out her website, yourvitalitycoaching.com. Um, so, Zoe, until we see you again, this has been Retrieving Sanity. Schlan. And then